Behind this fence and under this tarp covering a carport, we can hear the hum of a wood planer as Brendan Murphy fine-tunes one of his trademark cutting boards. With his sizable collection of woodworking tools and gear, the easy assumption is that this has been a lifelong endeavor. The truth is, these cutting boards only began as a concept in 2023, as part of Murphy's annual creative Christmas gifts. The spring of 2026 marks a continuation of the whirlwind that's ensued ever since.
2023, Christmas, arts and crafts. It took off from there. I decided, well, I'm going to make some more. I made some small ones, so I started making some bigger ones, alternating between different grains, learning more, getting better tools, until one day I had so many of them that I couldn't give them away anymore and or afford to keep making them because wood's very expensive. So we decided that we were going to try vendor sales.
And vendor sales tend to encompass the seasonal circuit of farmers markets and craft fairs, which for folks in the arts community is the equivalent of a concert tour for a band with new music. Getting here was a bit of a winding road for Murphy, as he took the somewhat narrow path available to young adults who chose to stay on the Cape year-round back in the day.
On Cape Cod, you're either in construction, or you're in trucking, or you're in the restaurant business. Service industry, retail, not much going on. I was a truck driver. I started off as a truck driver. My second career now is I answer phones on a midnight shift, which is great. Woodworking, never in the picture at all. Learning how to read a ruler has been one of the most difficult parts of this process as an older person. It found me, I didn't find it. From those arts and crafts and making those Christmas gifts turned into, wow, I really like this. I'm pretty good at this. Let's see where it takes me.
Where it's taken him is to a place where he spends a good chunk of his free time under this converted carport, making some pretty neat stuff, like this rustic farmer's bench, along with his popular cutting boards. Of course, the process involves making a pretty good amount of noise, which could potentially make him not so popular with his neighbors.
I'm very self-aware of that. I try very hard to be a good neighbor. I try not to fire up any machines until at least 8:30 in the morning. Generally, I try and do it by 9. So if I need to get some supplies, I'll go to the hardware store, go to the wood supplier first thing in the morning, so I come back and I get this stuff going. Try not to run any machinery on the weekends, so I keep the neighbors happy while they're home trying to enjoy their time.
2026 marks only the second year for Murph Cutting Boards as a money-making operation, and so far it's enjoyed some decent success in the fairs that run from May through October. But for many in the Cape Cod arts and crafts community, getting showcased in the HyArts Shanties here at the Harborview area of downtown Hyannis is the proverbial call-up to the big leagues. These shanties may be empty now, but it won't be long until they're filled with countless local artists and artisans from mid-May right through the summer. And for Brendan Murphy, this will be his first time occupying one of these colorful cottages. The type of woodwork that Brendan Murphy does may not fall under the umbrella of traditional arts and crafts, so being chosen to participate is the kind of validation that he doesn't take lightly.
The fact that it's artist-driven and I'm there as an artist is incredible. I'm so pleased that I got into that.
But whether he's displaying his wares here on the walkway to the sea or cutting wood here in the cozy confines of South Dennis, he approaches it all with a sense of humility.
I still work a full-time job. This is a passion. This is a hobby. I enjoy doing it very much. As soon as it becomes work, I think I might have to step back and rethink my priorities on that. I get out of work from my full-time job on midnight shift and I come here to my workshop and I work all day long until it's time to go to bed. Time flies by. I love what I'm doing.
The Creative Arts Center has been around since 1969. there were a group of artists that would gather together as like a little art community, and one of them had been doing festivals, which we still host to this day. So we just had our 54th Festival of the Arts. And then what grew from that was they decided, wouldn't it be great for there to be an actual physical building where artists could take classes, do critique groups, have figure drawing, and showcase their work. And so we've been around since then doing all those things. The mission of the Creative Arts Center is to offer high-quality art experiences, education, and exhibits for all. We offer classes year-round, and we offer classes in painting, pottery, drawing, jewelry making, stone carving, iPhone photography, printmaking, enamel. So we really offer a whole breadth of classes. I think people are always surprised to hear in this little center how much we actually, how many different classes we offer. Those we offer year-round. Then in June and September, we have our workshops, which bring in world-renowned artists to Chatham, and they come for 3 days to 5 days. Usually the workshops are in length, and those are primarily painting classes. Sometimes they're plein air classes where people go out and paint on site. It's a very intensive workshop and a unique opportunity to work with these artists that are really top tier and at the very height of their career. People grow a lot within that week. Art brings so much to our lives. Science certainly proves that it helps with our well-being and our mental health. There's just great community around it here. You know, along with myself, the other two staff members are Caitlin Rice, our associate director, and Allie Kelly, who is our administrative assistant. And we get such a kick out of how much laughter we hear in the Creative Arts Center. Art makes people happy. You know, it makes them happy to look at art. It just gives you something, and it also makes you happy to make art. So it's fun to be a part of that. We are at 154 Crowell Road in Chatham, right next to the Drama Guild. CapeCodCreativeArts.org, and everything is regularly updated on that. All of our classes, exhibitions, events, outreach, all of it is on there. Sometimes people, I feel like, shy away from an art class because they're insecure about their drawing ability. And there's so many ways to express yourself through visual arts that doesn't involve drawing at all. So there's really something for everybody here.
Just like all other Cape Cod towns, businesses in Chatham have no problem getting folks in the door when the sun is shining and the beaches are packed. But what happens when the snow lands and the people shack up for the winter? Businesses that have been here for quite some time, like Fisherman's Daughter, know a little something about that.
So I started the collection in 1999. It originally started as a collection of accessories. I was shellfishing at the time. I had just graduated from Chatham High School. My dad fished commercially out of Chatham Harbor as a longliner and a gill netter. So I was inspired by growing up in Chatham, and eventually I started doing a lot of wholesale, mostly in New England, and then I opened my business, the physical retail store, 16 years ago. Everything is inspired by growing up on Cape Cod as the daughter of a fisherman. My favorite drawing that I've done is the Life Comes in Waves. So you'll see it on many different styles. It's one of our most popular designs.
Along with her own collection that's inspired by growing up on Cape Cod, other local artisans are also featured in the store. From jewelry to home goods, there are plenty of pieces from the local community, as well as ones from all the way across the country in California.
Pretty much every artist that I have in the store I've met personally. So yeah, it's an eclectic, curated mix of artists and designers that I feel complement our collection. Everything that we stock is printed locally. We try to source base products for our printed gear that is manufactured with eco-friendly and recycled materials whenever possible. And for all of the lines that we carry in the store, we also focus on vegan, recycled, organic, as much as we can. For example, 2 of our sunglass lines are made with plant-based acetate. So just really trying to focus on products that are as sustainable as possible.
Although Fisherman's Daughter is open year-round, the winter certainly stalls the in-store traffic. The winter and the cold months become a time to regroup and see what the next move is.
As far as our own designs, I do as much drawing as I can when it's a quieter time for us, and that's usually when I'm able to take a little bit of time off to spend more time reflecting on Fisherman's Daughter and things that I think people will enjoy us adding to the collection as either drawings or, other designs.
Fisherman's Daughter has been known to the Chatham locals and tourists for years, and the path there isn't always the easiest, but they have made their mark and their home in this quaint seaside town.
We generally will have customers that are in town just for the day come back a couple times over the course of the day and tell us that we have the friendliest staff and great customer service. So I think that goes a long way. I grew up in Chatham. I have, 45 years of friends, family, and over 26 years of my business, and it becomes your work and customer family. So a lot of people that I see year after year have been customers of mine for over 20 years, and so they support my business in the off season also, which is great. We have a wonderful local following as well as off Cape tourist following that maybe only come in the summer, but they always come back to say hello and support the business. When I first started, we were just coming out of a recession, and I was in a weird offbeat location, and I had this dream, and 16 years later, it's a privilege and an honor to be able to get up and come to work and open my door and see my customers and have wonderful interactions with people. And it's the love and support of my business that I never expected when I first opened. I always hoped that my dream would come true, but it's been an incredible experience.
Cape Media Center, building community through media.
The Rotary. It's an obstacle that countless Cape Cod residents have to circumnavigate every single day in some way, shape, or form. For many of them, it may very well be the most stressful part of their day, which is understandable. There's a bit of a chaotic element to multiple lanes of traffic with several points of exit and entry all meeting up in the same circle at varying speeds. For visitors to Cape Cod arriving here by way of the Bourne Bridge, the Bourne Rotary is the first thing they see, and when they're done with it, it's likely the last thing they want to see. Again, that chaotic element is front and center here. Of course, not every vehicular roulette wheel offers up the same white-knuckle experience. Here at the west end of Hyannis, the Rotary has a much more relaxed atmosphere, with everyone coming and going with relative ease and order. This pattern seems to continue with each traffic circle the farther we get from the hustle and bustle. In fact, in the more rural areas, the name even changes to something a little more polite sounding. The roundabout. It's got a bit of a European air about it. But for our European friends who are accustomed to driving on the left side of the road and traveling around the circle in a clockwise motion, there's this little sign here as a reminder. Now, if we're talking about one of the most unique, historical, and least stressful roundabout traffic circle rotaries around, we'll have to take a trip to this neighborhood that hugs the Bass River in South Yarmouth, where River and Pleasant Streets converge. They say one way to know who the tourist is and who the local is that the tourist will actually go around this traffic circle while the locals just drive right through. But no matter how drivers approach it, it's entirely possible that this little roundabout was the precursor to the modern-day rotary. Quite often, the rotaries that we come across in our travels tend to have some type of landscaping on the inner circle. What stands out about this one here on River and Pleasant is that it's a two-tiered brick structure. So while it's known as the first rotary in the United States, that may not have even been its original intention.
This rotary traffic circle, whatever you would like to call it, put here about 1904, 1905 by a gentleman named Charles Henry Davis, a local here, lived right across the street. It originally started as an animal watering trough. As to whether he plunked it here as an animal watering trough or a rotary, not really sure whether it started out as one and graduated to the other or had an original purpose.
Although he may have inadvertently started the trend of rotaries from coast to coast, it's possible that Davis's involvement with the National Highway Association as one of its founding members had a direct impact on the roadways that we take for granted on a day-to-day basis.
I wouldn't necessarily say his fingerprints are on it, but his ideas are probably parts of it. Probably making more direct routes to and from various places. At the dawn of the automobile, people were becoming more mobile, relying less on animal transportation and more machines. Early cars obviously didn't go that fast, but they couldn't handle the kind of rough terrain like a horse could as much. So they were trying to level ground and make more direct routes to certain areas instead of like S-curves and everything around the landscape. It was more a straight shot, as much as one could have.
100 years ago, Davis probably didn't envision the kind of clutter that today's modern-day roadways endure. As for the lasting legacy of his old neighborhood roundabout, Sam Lawrence has an affinity for the trivia that it provides.
To me, this is exactly what I want it to be. It's an obscure fact that you can bring up in a topic of conversation and surprise someone. Hey, did you know that the first rotary in the country was right here in South Yarmouth? Some people will know. You get out of town, people will go, no, I didn't know that. Where is it? Oh, it's right in the middle of the road in South Yarmouth. Oh, the thing that we ignore all the time? Yes, the thing that you ignore all the time.
We opened 19 years ago. It started out as just a bakery, and then we transformed it into also doing breakfast and lunch, and we also do wholesale, wedding cakes, birthday cakes, all kinds of stuff. Everything here is made from scratch. I've always wanted to own a bakery. When I was 15, I told my mom, I remember I was in the kitchen making Valentine cookies, and my mom and I were having some fun, and I looked over at her and I said, one day I'm gonna own my own bakery. And from then on, it's just been like tunnel vision. So some of the things here are like staples. We never stop making the blueberry scones, the French donuts, chocolate chip cookies, and of course blueberry and coffee cake muffins. I want to say that it kind of evolved on its own by the way that what customers were asking us for. And like as far as brownies and bars and things like that go, we like to rotate through the seasons. And we will always have like some of your traditional ones, like the regular fudge brownies, chocolate peanut butter bars, magic squares. Those are the ones that people can pretty much guarantee they're going to be able to get when they come in. And then the drinks it's a seasonal thing. And we also will go through and look out on social media and see what's trending and what's happening, and then we try to take our own twist on it so that we're not directly just making the same thing as everybody else. We're getting into a time where everybody's becoming a little bit more conscious of the ingredients that are going into their food. And we've always been very conscientious about that. I don't use any high fructose corn syrup in the building. We don't even sell drinks that have high fructose corn syrup. We use unbleached, unbromated flour. We use Domino sugar, real butter, real eggs. So the product that you're getting is made from ingredients that are not the ones that you would see lower down on an ingredient label on the side of a box. So I do know that brings people in. We wouldn't be able to survive without the community here. In the wintertime, it's definitely more of a personal, social event, if you will, when people come in every day. In the summertime, we don't see a lot of our regulars, to the point where if we see one of our regulars come through in the summer, we're like, what are you doing here? How did you get here? It's a totally different vibe in the off season, and I enjoy the community that it definitely brings and creates, because we're such a small population here in the off season that you really do start to get to know your neighbors and your customers, and you develop these relationships with them, and it becomes like a family. We have at times called some of our customers to make sure that they are okay. And they're like, oh no, I'm sorry, I was on vacation. I'm like, you gotta tell us when you go on vacation for 2 weeks. We haven't seen you. It's definitely a roller coaster. There's no money being made in the winter. It's all about cash flow and maintenance and making sure that you're ready for the next big season so that you can produce enough and be financially successful enough to carry you over in the off season. It's all about budgeting, and if you can't foresee a huge snowfall or something horrible happens in the world and everybody is devastated. You don't know what's coming from day to day, but you kind of have to focus on your passion, and you have to try your best to stay driven, and sometimes it's okay to slow down. Be easy on yourself and just kind of be okay with how it is here. So we have to take the good with the bad in that way. When the community comes back out again in the off season, and that's where passion is. That's where the emotions are. That's the drive. That's what feeds you. It's not, the summer will feed you monetarily. The off season will feed you with the community and the love, and that's what keeps you going. We're not becoming millionaires by owning small businesses. Anybody that owns a small business, it's because it's what they love to do. But we wouldn't have anything without the community for the locals and the regulars throughout the year. Those are the ones that keep you going.
For those who have driven past this location since the early 2000s, it may be difficult to believe that this was once a vast expanse of cranberry bogs. What we're seeing now is the result of a couple of decades worth of planning and eventual execution of a massive ecological restoration project that the Harwich Conservation Trust took on since purchasing these erstwhile bogs from the Kroll family back in 2001.
We created this eco-restoration outcome where we have restored water quality with Brook flowing freely for the first time in over a century. We have thriving wildlife habitats, and we have a beautiful new trail system, including a half-mile wheelchair accessible loop.
Named for the late founder and president of the Harwich Conservation Trust, the accessible trail has already proven to be a huge draw for the property. It's almost perfectly flat and easy to move across, and it's level with the several bridges that have been built over Cold Brook, giving its visitors plenty to look at.
The views are just extraordinary. When they come into the parking lot, whether it's a short-term visit to just take a lunch break, or whether they have more time on their hands and they want to take a longer loop, they can embark on this half-mile all-persons trail, a wheelchair-accessible loop. We're hearing from folks that might have had joint replacements or maybe some arthritis, and they want a stable surface to walk on. Families with youngsters and strollers are also enjoying it.
In that regard, the trail has earned itself the title of Ideal Lunch Break Hike for locals. And for those who may want to venture beyond the half-mile loop trail, there are options.
Here on this corner is where the two paths converge, and the trail goes from being wheelchair accessible to something a little more rugged. But if we continue moving forward in this direction, we'll come across the 100-foot bridge where we can take in some more views.
In our travels, we can see that the property is made up of 4 interconnected ponds. The first 3 are fresh water, and from the 100-foot bridge, we can see the 4th pond, which is a brackish mix of fresh and salt water. This eventually leads out to the edge of the property on Hoyt Road and continues on to Saquatucket Harbor. One other element that may stand out to first-time visitors to the property is the sheer volume of birdhouses that dot the landscape, and there's a good reason for it.
There has been an enormous increase in wildlife and avian activity. The avian count is somewhere around 162 species that have been documented on this site since we started keeping account at the end of construction.
In its visual simplicity and natural beauty, the Cold Brook Preserve may be a helpful reminder for Cape residents, particularly those who have called it home for the past few decades, that there are still places on this special East Coast peninsula known as Cape Cod that are off limits for development.
My mom and dad raised my brother and I on the Cape. And so growing up on the Cape, especially in the 80s, I saw a lot of changes. I saw a lot of the wild places that I would turn to and explore. I saw them disappear. So it made an impact on me, and I'm so grateful to be able to work with the community and our project partners on efforts to restore and renew wild places like this.
But while all of this scenery is easy on the eyes, the truth is getting to this stage was no easy feat. As a reminder to visitors as to just how much work was involved in its creation, they've set up these information stations explaining the how and why of it all.
Part of what we hope people can understand is the complexity of this project and the complexity of the work that turned it from a cranberry bog into what they are seeing.
Cape Media Center, building community through media.
Hey, I'm Kayla. I was an intern at Cape Media Center back in 2019, and that experience totally launched my career in media.
And I'm Destiny. I was right there with Kayla in 2019, learning everything from camera work to editing and loving every second of it.
The staff here at Cape Media Center were always hands-on and always willing to answer our questions, especially with our final project.
We created a series of videos called the Blue Economy Project, where we dove deeper into how the ocean plays a vital role in Cape Cod's economy.
The series was well approved, and we couldn't have done it without the Cape Media Center.
Fast forward to now, I'm working in live music production and have even worked at venues such as Gillette Stadium and Fenway Park.
And I actually came full circle. I'm back at the Cape Media Center, this time on staff.
Cape Media Center gave us the tools, the confidence, and the real-world experience to chase our creative goals.
It's more than just a media center, it's a launch pad for your future.
Start your story at Cape Media Center in Dennisport.
Cape Media Center, your voice, your vision, your community.